Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed at episode number 287. Us humans may have limited little minds, but he still likes us. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm well,
other than
thank
limited
you.
and little.
Liked.
That's good. Did you have a good week off, Glenn?
Yeah, it was nice.
And a good birthday?
Nice and relaxing. Didn't do much.
Watched a lot of news.
I watched a lot of news.
Your day off.
I did.
On his week off.
I did. It was all foreign news, though. So. No.
You guys don't have a foreign desk at the
Not at this station.
Well, no.
Friday.
Why?
That's all National was offering on Friday.
I'm sure it was. I didn't do too much this week other than getting ready for our big garage sale we had on Friday and Saturday. So most of the week I spent...
Once again, I miss out and don't get an invite to the garage sale. I've refused to believe you actually have these.
You ought
mythical.
to know every other month we're going to have garage sales. You just should know it's coming.
You should just start
Put it
driving
on
by your
calendar,
house
yeah.
and
Oh,
wait.
hey, there's the Bartlett's having a garage sale again. So I spent most of the week digging stuff out, getting old stuff out of the shed, pricing new stuff that was coming down. And then Tuesday was my birthday, which I had a good birthday, and actually got some gifts tonight, which maybe I'll talk about those real quick. Ouch. From Sean and Mel, I got a Sgt. Pepper Christmas ornament from Vegas, I assume, right?
From the
Love,
Beatles'
from
Love.
the Beatles' Love. And it's the
from the
drum.
gift shop.
It's the drum, the bass drum with the Beatles, or with the Sgt. Pepper logo on it, which is really cool. And then from Keith and Sarah and Cody, I got to read it again because I can't remember exactly what it was. It's a book called 365 Days of Memorable Moments and Impossible Things, and it's by Justin Richards. I didn't see that. That's cool. And
We like Justin Richards.
we do like Justin Richards. And it's for each day of the year, it's got a different thing, and then also an on this day segment for each one that says things that happen. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, I didn't get any gifts. Everybody gave me money for my birthday, so I'm in the money.
Can't complain about that.
But I did buy.
Had I known there was a garage sale going on, I might have given you more money.
Uh,
I called this Masque of Mandragora my my birthday present because I used some birthday money to order it. But I went in and ordered it. I didn't get it in time for Friday, so I knew I was going to make Friday Night Who, but it said it would ship on Saturday, and by 8 o'clock. When 8 o'clock rolled around, I hollered at Keith and said, "I don't have this yet. Can I borrow your digital copy?" So I borrowed Keith's digital copy, and then this morning, bright and early, knock on the door, it came. So, which was probably all the best because we were busy today doing other stuff, so I wouldn't have got a chance to watch it today.
I keep forgetting that the USPS does Sunday package deliveries now.
Yeah. So and then Friday, we closed at about 1:30 on Friday because we just had no traffic, but we had a good, we made a decent chunk of money, so and got rid of a bunch of stuff. That's ultimately the goal, is to get rid of the old stuff, and that was pretty much it.
Did you watch anything on your week off other than the news?
I was. We were talking before show. The reason these guys are chiding me is because we were talking before that was it Wednesday?
I'm not chiding you.
Was Wednesday when the sit-in was?
Tuesday into Wednesday.
Tuesday into Wednesday. So Tuesday,
or was it Wednesday into Thursday?
I think it was Wednesday into Thursday. But my
Thursday.
my parents actually came by and brought me a card and some money for my birthday on Tuesday night. We watched, we had birthday cake, and I remember not watching.
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday into Thursday.
It was Wednesday and Thursday. I spent most of the day watching the sit-in on the House of Representatives floor with the Democrats that were trying to get a bill for gun control, and was just captivated by that. And then Thursday, I spent most of the day watching the Brexit, all the lead up to the vote, because that was the day of voting, I believe, and the polls closed there at 10, which our time was relatively early in the afternoon, and stayed up way too late watching the returns for that. In fact, I was watching late enough that I was watching the British wake up to the surprising news over there on Friday morning. And then Friday got up to the garage sale, and then after we were done, immediately turned on and watched the Brexit stuff again. I was just captivated by the insanity.
What is amazing about it
there
was how close of a vote it was.
Yeah,
That's what's amazing to me.
The country was pretty much split on it. Anyway,
It definitely is.
enough about the EU. So I was captivated by that. That's pretty much all I watched this week. I did watch Game of Thrones tonight, the season finale tonight. So, and I actually, since our last broadcast, I watched last week's Game of Thrones.
Right, since our last broadcast earlier tonight.
Oh, we did do another broadcast earlier, and I forgot about that. Yeah, we actually we chatted with the Five-ish Fangirls. All three of us were on the Five-ish Fangirls this week. So that episode will be coming out this week, and we just kind of chatted about everything, didn't we?
Yeah, we just kind of tangented and just went on.
That was the purpose of the show. It's part in they've celebrated their 2-year birthday already, but they're coming up on episode 100. And so this was ultimately a kind of a mix of birthday and 100th episode specials. So splitting the difference.
Oh, I actually
we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did.
We did have a lot of fun.
I actually watched a lot of stuff this week. I finally got around to Snowpiercer, which was really good. Really interesting little movie.
Like, I really wanted to like it
I'm
until
on
the
the
end.
fence about it. The end's kind of why I'm not sure how I feel about it. It ended a way that should appeal to me, but I don't know if it did. And then this week I watched Childhood's End, the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries based off the Arthur C. Clarke novel, and it is phenomenal. It is gripping and compelling, and I don't want to say too much about it because I want everyone to go watch it. I'm not sure how I feel how it ends because it kind of a little bit goes off the rails in a normal Arthur C. Clarke kind of fashion. So I highly, 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 highly recommend that one. That's probably one I'm probably going to pick up on Blu-ray and rewatch frequently because it's so good. The last thing we watched was My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. It was alright. It was more of the same, but it was enjoyable.
Same.
It's worth picking up and renting to watch if you like the first one. It's what I've liked about the first film and what I like about this one is there's not that big overwrought drama that the couple has to overcome and then live happily ever after together. That's pretty much all I watched. Sean, did you watch anything?
We finished Archer season 6. Watched another couple of Arrested Developments. Still toiling along in season 1, not because we're not enjoying it, just because we don't get to watch that very often. And then I double checked. We were exactly at the halfway point in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 3.
We really don't have anything for the next segment other than filming has begun and there are pictures of them filming on set. I looked at them. I saw the actors standing there.
That's what you see. That's what I was talking about last week.
Yeah,
this is nothing new. It's something that happens, and it never gives anything away.
It's exciting that they're actually filming, but...
Did you see that one image of Capaldi and
see how big his hair is?
Yeah, it's even bigger than last season, it looks like.
Did you see that one with Sutek?
Yeah.
And Omega? That was... that's telling.
That's telling.
I think the coolest...
That's the part that made me laugh.
I think the coolest part was the postcard that said we're getting the band back together. I don't know what that means. Maybe he's going to play guitar again this year. But so filming.
Yeah. Let's move on to feedback.
This just in, Doctor Who's still not on. But it is filming.
It is filming. In feedback, we got some feedback from Holly. She writes, Masque of Mandragora. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mandragora.
Not Mandragora.
No, Mandragora.
Hey guys, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't voted yet for July's book club choice on Goodreads, time is winding down. On to the review. I have to say I enjoyed this story. I love the bit where Sarah Jane and the Doctor find a second console room while touring the TARDIS. I really loved the set design of it, and I was grinning when Sarah Jane found what I'm guessing is the second Doctor's recorder and plays a few notes. Wonder how it got there. Maybe Jamie hid it? That Mandragora Helix energy is nasty stuff. Sarah Jane should get a I don't get to be captured or get out of the sacrifice free card with all the traveling she's done with the Doctor. Overall, a good episode. Looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on this episode. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. And if you haven't voted in the Goodreads Book Club, vote now and weigh in on Royal Blood if you're reading along for that. You can also send us feedback at travelingthevortex.com or on our website, travelingthevortex.com, on the Send Us Feedback tab, or reach out to us on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook is at Traveling the Vortex, and Twitter is at Travel Vortex.
And we will read your comments on the air.
We sure will.
I wonder if there's a fan story in there. Jamie darting through corridors of the TARDIS, and he can hear the Doctor going, Jamie! And he's like, just a minute! He opens the door, and it looks just like the other console room, and he just goes, Huck.
Get on that, Sean.
But the third Doctor's coat was there, too. So
Yeah, you got to explain how that
I gotta explain that one.
And what first Doctor item is there?
Maybe Joe said, God, what an ugly jacket. And there's a story of her running through the halls of the
It
TARDIS.
did seem a bit uglier than his other ones.
You hear the Doctor saying, Joe? And so she opens the door, and there's, hey, this looks like the console room. And she hucks it in there.
It's been done. Feels a bit derivative. Maybe the secondary control room is kind of like the room of requirement. It's like whenever somebody needs to get rid of something. The shaving mirror was probably the first Doctor item.
That's what I figured, too.
Ooh, what if you could work that joke in there, the 10th Doctor, one of these days you're going to be shaving it. I wonder if he maybe uses the mirror.
There you go.
So you don't have to fantasize all this stuff. It's there. You just gotta connect the dots.
Yeah.
Should we move on to our review?
Yeah.
Read the synopsis, Keith.
The Masque of Mandragora. After an encounter with the deadly Mandragora Helix, the Doctor and Sarah Jane land in 15th century San Martino. In the midst of danger, secrecy, and intrigue, they witness the flowering of the Italian Renaissance. As the Masque, to celebrate the accession of the new Duke of San Martino, approaches, the Doctor realizes that a third visitor has arrived with him in the TARDIS. It is a fourth force with the power to wipe out human civilization forever. The Doctor has brought it to Earth, and only the Doctor can stop it.
Dun dun dun!
I really enjoyed this one, too.
I did, too.
This is one of my favorites. I had forgotten it was one of my favorites until I watched it, but it's one of my favorites.
Which it's funny that at least I like it so much, and it's predominantly historical. I mean, all historical. There's a lot of those ones that I don't tend to like as much.
It has historical elements in it. They're no longer historical.
Well, yeah. It's as historical as it's gotten since first Doctor era.
I watched the making of, and they mentioned, nuts. What was the one prior to that Hinchcliffe did? One of his earlier ones where it was I think he called it a pseudo-historical, where it was, set in historical times, but still had aliens and, other things where you could kind of
to some extent, Pyramids of Mars.
Pyramids, thank you, that was the one. Where, you could throw some facts in there, and for the most part kind of get away with everything else, and he really liked how that one had turned out, and so Masque of Mandragora was a direct... He watched, was it Vincent Price and Masque of the Red Death?
Oh, I think
and
so,
went,
yeah.
we could do that. And
That
makes sense.
ripped it off and set about doing it.
Well, and it's one of those, unlike, it seems, when I think of this type of historical story, I don't think of the Fourth Doctor's time. Does that make sense? I think more of 5 or maybe 3, because Time Warrior or King's Demons or some of those other ones. I don't think 15th century and think Fourth Doctor. Maybe that's just me.
Well, yeah. I think why it doesn't seem out of place is because even though this is Earth, I mean, if you look at things like Android Zatara or you look at the Android Invasion, I mean, they all have kind of those same trappings.
Well, Android Invasion was more current, wasn't it?
Well, it was, but when they first land, it was. Well, no, you're right. Yeah, I'm thinking that was probably like mid 19th century, but you're right.
No, it was present because they've got the space complex. I think maybe what it is just the fact that maybe.
Well, the space complex is later. What I'm talking about, the village part of.
It's still present day. They've got a truck and.
Oh, I guess that's true.
And its unit.
Yeah, I was thinking mid 20th century, but that would have been close to mid 20th century anyway. But Android Zatara, I mean, that's certainly got all the same kind of trappings with the
1984 was so historical.
the Middle Ages and that kind of thing. So
I think what it is that
some of the ones like
it's
pyramids is not so far distant that it doesn't feel historical.
Talons of Wang Chang takes place in the Victorian era. So
maybe,
I mean,
it's more the
it doesn't seem
maybe it's more the Four and Sarah Jane that seems a little.
I think what it is that
because the later ones,
could be.
He spent so much time on Earth in the Third Doctor's persona that there was that conscious effort made to, we've got away from that.
Yeah.
And so the Fourth Doctor spent most of his time away from Earth. I mean, there's a handful that you've picked out, the Android Invasion and Talons and stuff, that, yes, are set on Earth, but he really spends a lot of time either away from Earth or Earth in the future, in the case of Ark, and the Genesis, the Daleks, and then back to Nerva and all that kind of stuff with the Cybermen. I mean, he spends a lot of time out and about.
Well, his first season,
there's no historical.
He starts out on Earth and he leaves and he's gone. I mean,
without ever setting foot in the TARDIS except once.
Is pretty much away from Earth.
So I think that was a conscious effort set to do that, and so you're right. There aren't a lot of historicals other than this one, Pyramids, Talon, and like you said, the trappings of Android Zatara.
And the trappings, because it's not set on Earth; it's set on another planet, but Zatara. But it's
because Stones of Blood is set present day.
It is set present day,
which is Earth, but and City of Death is present day. Yeah. Although he does travel back to the Renaissance era in that one.
So I see what you're saying, but it doesn't. That never crossed my mind watching this.
I think it is
quite different.
And I think it is also the having Sarah Jane there with him, because there wasn't many historicals with Tom and Elizabeth Slater,
right.
And I think that's part of what makes me, because when I see those two, I don't think beyond his time.
While it was Pertwee, Sarah Jane's first adventure,
in the 1500s, and that's kind of what this felt like, was a kind of more like that as opposed to the other foreign Sarah Jane stories that I'm used to. Okay. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, even Seeds of Doom is present day Earth, but so that's Earthbound too. So actually, there's a lot more. Terror of the Zygons. There's a bunch of Earth stories, not necessarily historical or period pieces, but there are a lot more Earth stories now, I think, than we're giving it credit for.
Okay, 2 more. I mean, comparatively, out of 7 years.
Of the 2 dozen.
Well, that's just...
I guess technically the first half of Hand of Fear.
Probably about 2/3.
Yeah.
3/4.
Yeah.
Anyways, I really like the story.
I did too. This is one that I saw when I was a kid, and I'm not sure I'd seen any of it since, but it was another one of those ones like I find myself doing with the Davison stories, is as I sat down and watched it, it just completely, the memory of it just completely came back. And I kept thinking, is this where this is where he does. Okay, is this where they go into the catacomb? Yeah, this is where they go to. So it was the recall was almost fascinating that it had been that long since I'd seen it. But as it was unfolding on the screen, I was remembering, I remember this, and I remember where this goes from here. I think the complexity of the story is what I really like, especially this time around as an adult. The idea of going into this area of space where they encounter the Helix and it hitches a ride basically and lands them on Earth where it needs to be, and then the idea of going back and utilizing an ancient cult in order to make its grab at Earth is very clever to me. And the machinations with the Count who's trying to take the throne by taking his nephew out.
And this cult worshipping it is just fascinating. That he's utilizing them to kill the Count, and
it's almost as though he has no belief in what this cult's doing, but he's making them a patsy for his ploy, and I like that idea. all the way down to the fact that it's revealed that Hieronymus is actually the lead priest in this cult, and the Count has no idea. He thinks he's just this fraud soothsayer that he's using, to kind of, in his machinations of trying to get the dukedom. It's really cleverly done, and the little political intrigue that they establish around this as something greater is coming. It's kind of Game of Thrones-ish. Something bigger is coming, but we got all this political shuffling going on over here, and nobody sees the bigger picture.
What's interesting too is that it's so well done, because I don't know how many times we've commented on the formula where there's some political intrigue afoot, and the current ruler's getting ready to be deposed by insert blank here, and it's the evil vizier. It's very cookie cutter in that regard, and yet it does not feel cookie cutter because it's so well paced, it's so well put together, it's extremely well edited.
The visual effects are fantastic.
Yeah,
especially for the era.
Sparklers, just
the little beam of light that comes down that is I don't know why it kept going around and killing people as it went, if its ultimate goal was to insert itself into this priest and become, it was kind of weird that it went around and just attacked people as it went. That seemed to have no purpose in the long run, other than to kind of announce.
We haven't killed anybody in about 5 minutes.
Other than to announce its presence, which I thought was kind of strange. But
I almost wondered if it was just unfocused and was trying to find its target.
It could be,
and that's why.
I know it's right.
Although you got the impression that because it steered its way to that point, and Hieronymus had made contact with something before that was a piece of the helix, you would have thought it would have known where it was going. But
admittedly, the first guy that it kills is the gun that waves the sword at it on the lake. So, maybe it just decided, don't even, pal.
Some felt the same. Well, he didn't even have a sword. That guy was fishing or something. He was throwing a net into the water.
I think he killed the swords guy I thought it was a sword guy.
No, the first thing he kills with the sword was the guard at the gate.
Who turns blue.
Yeah, turns blue. The one that they haul into, the Duke and his buddy haul into the thing. But there was a guy, when it first comes and it goes through the water and goes psss, and then it comes off onto the shore, and the guy's going, and he starts waving a stick at it. He was some peasant or something there. I didn't think he had a sword.
Pretty sure he had a stick.
Well, he had a stick, yeah. I'm not saying he wasn't trying to defend himself, and the Mandragora Helix was attacking him because he thought it was being attacked. But
this is I had the exact opposite reaction
Giuliano
that you had with your recall coming back to you. The more I watched, the more unfamiliar it was. And I went,
it was new to you.
It was completely new to me. I told Keith, I said, the one piece of this I remember, the very end where the doctor says, I wouldn't even say no to a salami sandwich. I've seen that. And I don't know if I've seen it in the context of the episode, or maybe I've seen that clip on something else.
I've seen it clip many times, so maybe that's where you've seen it.
It was all new to me. And I watched everything. I watched all the documentaries. I went through, and Billy kind of looked at me and goes, "You're still on this? It's late, dude." I'm like, "You don't understand, man. This was new Tom Baker." I don't get that very often.
Even if this had not been a great story, it would have been amazing just for you.
Just for the sake of
new Tom Baker.
New Tom Baker. So I loved the relationship that we get with Sarah Jane. She's extremely playful with him in this.
Yeah,
they've reached that level in their comfort zones with each other that she knows how far she can push him, and she knows when she can prod him, even if he's not responding to her. She knows she can do this. And yet, her comments, there are a handful of them that in the glorious vision of RetroSite, you can go back and go, she knows she's leaving. She knows she's getting to that point. I don't think it's the immediate surprise that we have kind of taken it before in Hand of Fear. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think she, in this one, I think it feels like she knows she's getting ready to say something.
Especially with the hypnosis in this, really helps lend to that moment at the end of Hand of Fear.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Not again.
Yeah, before that, it did feel like, well, that's just kind of coming out of the blue. Yeah, you had a bad experience with Eldrad, but come on. And this kind of helps put more context into that role. I totally agree.
And it just, I don't know. It was
and aside from her getting hypnotized, she had great stuff to do in the story.
Yeah. No, I don't think I don't think it was this story that necessarily broke her. I think I
just mean in general. She just had great stuff to do in the story. It's another great Sarah Jane story.
Like we commented that when she gets abducted, that we don't get her scream.
Yeah,
we don't get her going ah, and somebody clubs her over the head and then drags her off caveman style. And it's there's a cutaway, and then it comes back and she's been nabbed, and it's like, oh no, and it's just one of those classy ways that Sarah Jane, I feel, is treated maybe a little better in some regards than some of the other things. I mean, she screams later, obviously.
I think a lot of that also is her as an actor not saying, I'm not going to scream here.
Yeah.
I don't know how much
maybe
it's
not.
the writing.
Maybe we read way too much into it. But it just, I mean, obviously, she's got screams later when she's surprised when the guards come out of the catacombs and grab her and stuff like that. But that feels like an appropriate place to scream versus so early on in the episode. I love the secondary control room. I didn't used to. Like, I remember as a kid, because I wanted that sci-fi, kind of feel to it. Man, it's so pretty.
Still reminds me of a 1970s basement or den. But it's
I liked those too.
It's fine. It's nice because it's so drastically different from anything that we had gotten up until that point from Doctor Who.
And it's great to see the introduction of it, of them stumbling across it, as opposed to Hand of Fear, and they're just there. And okay.
I knew I had seen it much more in my childhood, but I couldn't. Just we saw it in Hand of Fear, and that was it, right? It's that one, this one,
Hand of Fear, and the Leela stories up to.
It's just
Talons.
Well, I guess Robots. Yeah, it was in Robots of Death.
Because we got that great.
It's in obviously in the Planet of Evil, which is her first story.
Yeah.
So okay, so it was in there. We have watched those as well, but yeah, it's one of those things that it seemed to be around longer in my memory, but then when we put everything in perspective, it didn't seem like it had been there that long until I'd seen it here, and then it sort of seemed like, okay, maybe this is why it felt like it was around longer, because I hadn't seen the introduction yet, and so now I've kind of come full circle. But I've always kind of liked the idea that it's there for a while. I'm glad they didn't stick with it, because I'm just partial to the original console room. But I like it. It's neat. And you guys have always complained about the size of the TARDIS console, but I've always kind of liked that. And the fact that the little panels open up to reveal the buttons inside.
I think my bigger issue with the actual console itself is I miss the time rotor.
Yeah.
The size of it doesn't bother me. It's just it needs a time rotor.
Well, just know that console is controlling things, but the time rotor's still running in the other room. The other console room.
This is just the remote control for that console.
There's a great documentary on here on the console room called Bigger on the Inside, and one of the guys makes the comment that it always bothered him that they go up those stairs and out the main door. And he, how does that work? And as a kid, he kept trying to, does it mean, and I did this too, is like, are they going out one of the other sides of the TARDIS? Because it's a box, there's 4 sides there. Maybe there's 4 different control rooms, and it's north, south, east, and west. But maybe the TARDIS just kind of reconfigures.
I think that's what
since it's extra dimensional, maybe it just goes, and okay, that works too.
It's extra dimensional because you can walk out one door here, and it's the same door here. So
yeah,
that's how the TARDIS works.
Yeah.
So.
See, in my head, that I have to. That I think is one of the problems I have with the smaller console, is that I have issues with you trying to fit all of this that runs the ship into a space this big.
Yeah.
That just seems, time rotor or not, it just seems a little weird.
We don't really, aside from the Master and the Rani, we don't see other TARDISes. Who knows, maybe the Type 50, 60 have smaller consoles.
Interesting, too, that when you really think about it in Doctor Who the movie, his console is considerably smaller than any of the ones we've seen, besides the extra one. But the TARDIS the control room is so much more vast. So to your point of it's smaller, so it seems like it's running so much more for a small console. But if you look at it, it's running so much more, and it's in a larger room, so it makes it look even smaller. So,
And I wonder maybe if that's one.
although
of the
there's
reasons,
a very large time roller in the Eighth Doctor's console, so
because it's the first one that goes all the way up to the ceiling
Right.
and just has the interior guts moving. I wonder if I can. This is something else I'm going to attribute to Doctor Who the movie is the fact that since as a kid I didn't particularly care for this console room because it wasn't sci-fi enough. After watching Doctor Who the movie and falling in love with the steampunk console room, coming back to this and kind
retroactively makes it better.
the Jules Verne kind of look
Yeah.
to it is like, that's a cool one. So when we finally get around to doing our console room discussion, I may have to reorganize some of these things in my head. Tom, of course, is great, and sword fighting.
Sword
Didn't know there was
fighting,
sword fighting.
horse riding,
Horse stealing.
Lots of horse stealing.
a little
There's some impressive stunts he did in this one.
Venetian Aikido.
Yeah.
And
See, I think there's a lot, that's why all of those things.
so many elements of
feel
the,
so
of the
third Doctor.
Yeah.
Makes it feel
I
so.
can see that.
It's a very
abnormal to me.
swashbuckling story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, for the true geek,
I love the great bit, but he still has his normal Fourth Doctor bits of using the scarf as a
Right.
indie whip
To trip him. And,
yeah.
Which is it's funny every time the Doctor has a moment, then it's completely squashed the next scene. Yeah, he jumps on a horse and rides off, and to immediately be plummeled off the horse. The sword fight is disarmed quickly. I think the only time that he's actually successful with his swords is when he and the Duke are battling it out with the Count's guards, and they're actually getting the upper hand. But I don't think they would have had the Brotherhood of the, what was the name of the god they were?
Demonos or something?
Well, the Colt.
Yeah,
If the Brotherhood of the Colt had not come out and ran the guards off, they obviously got out of that scrape thanks to that. But it just, every time it seemed like Tom would get a moment, it would suddenly be turned back on him again. So,
for the truly geek among us, did you happen to recognize the wonderful San Martino?
Oh, the locale?
It was previously known as the Village in The Prisoner.
oh, is that right?
That's one I haven't seen. So.
Oh, really? I learned that through the documentary. I didn't recognize it. Once I watched the documentary, I went, oh, yeah, that's totally where that was. Apparently, they did some nifty camera angles to play it off. But, yeah, that's they filmed the Patrick McGowan? McNee series, The Prisoner there.
Was it Marco that I recognized in the film? Or in the episode?
No.
Yeah, it was Marco, the actor. Because he was Captain Harker in Claws of Axos.
Was it Marco?
Yeah.
That was his friend, right?
Yeah,
his companion.
Friend. Yeah.
Okay. Did you recognize Marco?
Yeah, he was in Claws of Axos.
Do you know what else he was in? Lay it on him, Keith.
Here, I'll just show you a picture and then say V for Vendetta.
Oh, is that him? Oh, I'll be darned.
Yeah.
He's quite older there.
Well, it's been a few years.
Yes.
He's also in the documentary and has great things to say about.
Oh,
Apparently, he in real life was good friends with the Duke, and so the fact
Oh,
that they
so
got
well, that's kind of
got
neat.
cast
Yeah.
together and when we were running around, and he says, there is no greater thing as an actor than working at the BBC, and so people, it was never a wait on to Doctor Who, he's like, oh, I'm doing Doctor Who this week, and everyone's like, oh, we're horseback riding and sword fighting and just kind of all this kind of stuff.
Duke Giuliano.
And Glenn, maybe you know this. What is the proper ascension of rank? You go from was he a prince when his dad was still alive as the Duke, and then once his dad lives, he ascends to Duke? Is he a prince at that point?
I suppose that's right, because he would be head of the dukedom, because it's not a kingdom, because he's not a king. But yeah, so
and then his uncle is a count.
Didn't they call him Prince?
They did
Giuliano
call him.
at one
They did
point?
call,
That's why I was
Several
confused.
I believe that's right, but then he becomes Duke, I believe. So, although
assuming through
Duke
some
has to do with,
coronation.
I think Duke has to do with land ownership or something now, but I don't know how.
Okay.
How
I
it
don't
did
know how it did back in those days, but
Because his uncle being a count threw me
he would become
some point.
the Duke of the Kingdom.
Right.
Well, and the Count was only the Count because he was the brother to the Duke. They were blood related, but and he would have become Duke had he been able to get rid of the heir, Giuliano, who was the heir. But
Yeah.
So does that mean in Star Wars there's a Duke Dooku?
probably not. Probably works differently.
Well, why?
Because it's Star Wars.
It's English, right?
They had a princess president.
Yeah.
Or a queen president.
Queen president.
Elected queen.
Elected queen.
Yeah, I think politics works differently there.
But the successions still work, right?
Princess Leia was a princess, and her father was a senator. So there's no King Bail Organa. It's just Senator Bail Organa.
I'm assuming he rose in the ranks or got also elected and was king by the time Alderaan got destroyed. That's how I can retcon that.
Sure,
because they haven't told me otherwise.
King Bail Organa,
not in the new canon anyway.
Yeah,
because in Courtship of Princess Leia, he's not referred to as was not
I
referenced as a king.
There is very little in Courtship of Princess Leia that should ever be considered canon on any front.
I'm just saying.
For all you people that are upset,
there's a Duke in that.
For anybody who's upset about the Star Wars EU going away, Courtship of Princess Leia. Enough said.
Was he a Duke or was he a count? He had a title.
I don't remember.
Because she was supposed to marry him.
They blow up Han Solo's teeth. It was just bad.
I'm glad I didn't finish that.
It was bad. It wasn't
the reason I didn't. That's where I stalled out.
I'm sure Dave Wolverton's a fine author somewhere, but
did you guys get the references to why the Doctor had suspected that Sarah was under before he proclaimed what it was that he had suspected she was under? That
yeah.
You caught that when did you catch when she made the reference? Did it surprise you a little bit when she said it? That she wondered why she could understand Italian. She had never thought of that. And it was after that point that, she's following him through the hallway and he kind of does the around the corner and to give us the idea that he knows that something's afoot. And then what'd you think of the
well, let me rephrase. Did I get that moment that's when the Doctor knew? No. Obviously,
I was too focused on that. Oh, she's asking that question.
I couldn't.
We took it the other way.
I couldn't tell when I watched it if I had remembered that from a kid because this time I immediately knew why, and wondered why she asked the question this time. Why she just brought that up out of nowhere after she'd been traveling with him for a while, and not that she ever really knew or it was addressed before, which is the interesting thing about it. That would be the thing that he would key in on, but it wasn't until this time that I was like, I wonder if that's a hint there. And then, of course, the next scene is her following him, and he does the thing where he's looking around the corner, suspecting or checking to see if she's still following him. So I kind of figured that must have been the tip-off. But
I liked his answer, too. Time Lord gift. That's all you needed.
It's true. And that's all they had back then, which is the interesting thing, because it's not until the Ninth Doctor where he says that it's the TARDIS that actually gives the ability to companions to understand.
Doesn't contradict, and
it's
a Time Lord gift.
It's a Time Lord gift. Well, because in fact, I think the Ninth Doctor specifically says it's a gift from the TARDIS. At that point, can't be a Time Lord gift at that point because there's no other Time Lords. He's it's either him giving it or the TARDIS giving it. So it works both ways.
I can retcon that as either it's a simple Time Lord gift is a get out of jail free card because Sarah won't question it if he answers with that, or you could go with he knows more about the TARDIS by the time he's in body number 10 than he does when he's in body number 4.
I sort of look at it as that the Fourth Doctor is a little more conceited than the Ninth Doctor, so he's taking the credit instead of giving it to the TARDIS because it's not a lie.
The Fourth Doctor is very conceited.
It's not a lie. It's a gift that I'm giving you.
Your mind is beginning to work, Harry. You mustn't take any credit for it, of course. It's all due to my influence. 4 and 12 would really get along pretty good.
I think so.
Yeah, they really would.
This was written by Louis Marks, and I knew the name. It's just one of those familiar Doctor Who title cards that you go, I've seen that one before. Previously, he was responsible for Planet of Giants.
Oh,
Day of the Daleks. And the one we haven't reviewed yet, Planet of Evil. So
That's my last 4 and 11. Or 4 and 11. 4 is Sarah Jane, right?
that's your last 4 in Sarah Jane. I just...
Creature from the Pit. Oh, no, that's a... no, never mind. That's not Sarah Jane. Well, Megalos, though.
No, that's not Sarah
That's Sarah
Jane.
Jane.
Megalos?
Oh, that's Ramona.
Ramona.
Jeez. Yeah, no, you're right. It is. You're right.
I've got several
Planet of
4s
Evil
left.
is the only Sarah Jane.
He's got several 4s left, and several... Well, he's got 2 4 in Ramona's. 2.
Didn't
Of
have
course,
much-
Tegan and Adric.
Don't have
and-
much 4 left, so...
Nope.
But yeah, you're not going to let him watch those.
No, those are at the end. As I've said before, it is, and the sad thing is, Keith, we make the joke about the Traken references. It's not even for Traken. It's the fact that I'm not ready to go back yet. 5 years doing this podcast, I'm still not ready to face that day. So you just have to deal with it.
I had to face my day.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's not really fair, is it?
But I am the keeper of the schedule.
I think maybe I've become a bit numb to it because I've watched those twice since we've started this show. I've seen all of the New Beginnings box.
You know, I've been going back and or going and listening to Big Finish on my own. Maybe I'll just go and jump to the New Beginnings
You're not
box.
allowed, remember?
That's what I think you should do, Keith. It's force his hand.
It would be out of bounds. I'll have to send the big giant ball after you. Oh, wait, you haven't watched that either.
No.
You have to watch The Prisoner first so that you get that reference before you can know what kind of true danger you're
All right,
in.
I'll have to try to get The Prisoner on my to-watch list.
Don't watch the remake. The Ian
no,
McKellen,
no.
Jim Caviezel one sucked. It was so boring. It was terrible. And I was so frustrated because it could have been great, but it was just boring.
So should we move on to Mark of Mandragora? Which,
Yes.
after rereading this, I realized we didn't have to read that whole collection. But I was glad that we did because I actually quite enjoyed those
I
stories.
enjoyed the collection immensely.
I've got a synopsis. Hold on. Let me flip my computer around.
Mister, I don't have to go to another device. Flip the thing.
Once it's goes.
I didn't bring my other device, so
What do you need to share?
I remember it well.
I'll let you look off my book.
I remember it well enough. I just reread it last night. Actually, I did what Keith suggested he was going to do. Yesterday, I read the first 4 stories and then watched Masque of Mandragora, and then read Mark. Because, of course, again, I had just recently read it within the past year, but knowing that one was a sequel to the other, or pseudo-sequel to the other one, so...
I did the same thing, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Because I would not have gotten it done. For starters. But also because it was just kind of cool to be able to go thunk, and here's a chunk of it. And I wanted to keep going,
Yeah.
and then it was like, oh, all right, I have to stop now until I watch Math.
Right.
Yeah. I'm beaten, Ace. At the end of the 20th century, the Mandragora Helix returns to Earth to be reborn, and there's nothing the Doctor, Ace, or unit can do to prevent it. The Mark of the Mandragora is a cunning story. That's it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty much all you need.
Yeah.
Really enjoyable.
What I kind of like, it's I think we'll focus in on Mark specifically, but you guys read the other stories, right, leading up to it.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that the 7th Doctor is reunited with Sarah Jane. I think what it does is it
creates some issues with
creates
school
some
reunion.
issue with school reunion, but
That's the only problem I had with that story.
But I liked the premise of it. I liked the idea that the bus was being, or the train was being shuttled into this different dimension where this time tunnel essentially, where there was this preying species that their original species were peaceful, but they were like this renegade faction. And it's a fun little adventure that, I mean, it sees a lot more deaths than one might want to see in Doctor Who, but as it's off screen or off story deaths, ones that happen prior. But it's fun. It's neat. The them being hunted was kind of cool, and then turning it back on them. I thought that was neat.
I think throughout the entire thing, they really nailed Seven's voice. I heard Sylvester's voice in my head whenever I read his dialogue. I don't know if that's me putting it more on there than it really was, but that's all I heard.
I think what helps is a lot of these were being published back near into and during in Doctor Who magazine, the Seventh Doctor's era.
Yeah, that could be.
So I think that while that's fresh in your mind, as Sylvester McCoy is playing it on TV, or near having come off of him just playing it on TV, it's still relevant at that point.
So you didn't have problems that they were essentially anthropomorphized ants?
No, we've got the Zarbies. So.
Yeah, they did feel a lot like the Zarbi.
I suspect, and I could be wrong, so correct me here if I am, within a comic book format that you might be a little more forgiving of a shortcut, if you will, and just kind of going, it's an insectoid race.
I'm a little less forgiving with a comic because you can do whatever you want with a comic. You don't are constrained by budget or ideas, or it's all visuals. So
never mind.
Sorry,
you're right. They should have given us a Zarbi reference that they were somehow related, and then
I think that maybe that's where I went to was what was Zarbi. I think maybe that's what I did. As I thought, we've got interrelated humanoid species. Why not? Why not giant ants?
Maybe they're termites.
Yeah.
With the size of their tongues, I would think anteater might be a little more.
True.
But they're definitely insectoid.
Yeah.
Praying mantis style. I don't know. This panel, this page here, right after they've escaped the bus being ejected into space and or walking around, and Sarah's kind of doing her Sarah prattle, as I call it, where she's like, "Oh, I never thanked you for this," or "I never thanked you for that," or and then the doctor stops her and says, "That day I bundled you out of the TARDIS and kicked you out," and
yes,
yeah,
just
and then the great line of "I changed that once I became president" totally fixes why Leela gets to go and Sarah Jane didn't get to.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah,
it kind of makes me mad that this conflicts with school reunion.
Yeah.
Because then that would obviously fix that issue.
Well, sadly, that was the after effect of the new series coming back, we had to kind of wipe clean the Virgin New Adventure stories. We had to wipe clean pretty much all of the stuff that happened in the comics and Doctor Who magazine. But it's fun to go back and revisit the sidesteps or the what-ifs.
Yeah.
This for me, and maybe it's because Sarah Jane is such a high-ranking, companion in my eyes, but I really like her with Seven.
Yeah,
I think they had a great pairing here.
Yeah. Maybe because we've always kind of commented how Ace has a lot of similarities to Sarah as well. They're certainly not the same character, but I think they have a lot of the same characteristics. The strong female, the closeness between the relationship between the doctor and the companion and those kind of things. So it's probably because it's an easy pair of shoes to fit into.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the second story was enjoyable. Nice little Viking adventure.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, jog my brain on that one. And it's a quick, short one.
It's a really quick one. I think that's part of why I enjoyed it, was that it was so quick.
I like that it's a bit bootstrap.
Yeah.
Well, it's looped continuity is what it is.
Yeah. It's who invented this game, which I had never heard of.
Yeah, that must be British centric, because I'd never heard of that. What was it called? Knackers? Not
Conkers, I think.
Conkers. Yeah. To me, Conkers were those things we had in the 1970s. It was two balls on a string, and it had a little flat piece that they were attached to here, and they were usually two different colors. And what you did is you started. I guess they were actually called clackers, not conkers. But anyway, you just kind of rocked your hand up and down, and down here at the bottom they would clack together and meet. And if you could get it going fast enough, you get it swinging out enough, you could actually get enough momentum for them to do this. And that was the impressive thing, because you go get those going, and that was pretty impressive when you get somebody to do it. Now, me as a 7-year-old child doing this, it was and these were little solid plastic balls on there so that they would clack together. And me doing that, it was pop right in the head. So it just that I think they were called clackers, not conkers, but that's what it reminded me of just looking at it immediately.
Bit, yeah.
But then when you look at it, it's almost a taking one to smack the other one and crack it. So
I love it when Glenn
get
tells us
points.
stories about toys in his youth. Tell us again about the hula hoop and the stick.
I'm only a year older than you, Sean.
And until March, you're going to get so many of these jokes, and then I'll be quiet for a couple of months.
Notice the Vikings have horns on
Horns on
their
their
helmets.
helmets.
Speaking of toy, yeah, I looked at that and went, "This is never going to be the same again." One thing we didn't mention was the yo-yo makes an appearance in Masque of Mandragora. When he sits on the altar there, and
yeah.
he's doing the yo-yo.
Oh, yeah.
He pulled the yo-yo out of his pocket. Anyway, the toy reminded me of that.
I forgot all about the yo-yo.
And I also rather enjoyed Fellow Travelers, the shape-shifting creatures coming through.
I remember I enjoyed it a lot more the second time that I've read it. The first time I read it, it was a little bit unsettling, and I think
it's
because
supposed
of
to be.
because of the nature of the story and the content, the context of the racism that's in it, and the fact that there's an old lady that becomes this evil devilish thing that she's been possessed by, and the fact that when it boils down to it, you don't feel so bad that she got possessed by it when you find out what kind of person she really was anyway,
Yeah.
because that really
Yeah.
comes out. But
And this really
it
feels
was-
like
it was-
a late 7 and 8 story. The
Yeah,
darkness
it does.
of
Do you know why?
It really felt unsettling, but then was it a Cartmel story?
It was a cartoon story.
Hence the cat also.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was the first time I read it, I remember it being really unsettling, and this time reading it, it was more of a, well, that's a really impactful story. It's a real powerful story.
Yeah,
real
it really
powerful
was.
message.
But then it also ends on a rather almost hopeful message of
It does.
the power of
Love.
defense and love is stronger than the hatred that this old woman has.
Well, I like that they leave it where Ace questions, well, what if it comes back? And the doctor essentially says, well, if it does, it'll be all right, because it's learned to protect and the motherly aspect of it instead of the hate and the
Yeah.
evil. So they kind of leave it in the fact that he didn't really diminish the threat, or he did diminish the threat, but he didn't destroy it. So I think that was
Yeah.
kind of a neat way to leave it as well.
And I like the fact that it was implied that it's his house. Doesn't say it outright, but the picture of him and her grandfather. So that almost implies that it's
I kind of wonder if that's
Travers.
Professor Travers.
That's
Yeah.
what it looks like.
There has to be.
So is
So
this
it'd be Anne's daughter,
well, no, it wouldn't be
What's-
Anne. Well,
what's his face's daughter?
It was
I can't remember his
was
name.
it
Oh,
is
well,
it the mom's grandfather?
It doesn't say.
It's the
It
little
just says-
girl's grandfather.
Okay, so that would mean that this and the woman obviously is Asian. She's a different. That's what was implied to me, and
Yeah.
I wondered if she was from the Detsin area where's that? Where's the Himalayas? What country is that?
Tibet.
Tibet. Thank you. That she may be from Tibet, and I also wondered if you could connect this to Anne's brother. What was his name?
Alan.
Alan, who we just got introduced to.
Who I think that's who this is supposed to be. I think the Asian lady is Alan's wife. And
Is that
Lizzie
okay?
is
Well-
their daughter because
Well-
of the.
But hold on. In the actual dialogue, it says yes, but Ella's used to it. Her family have been the caretakers here for years, so it's almost like they're the hired help. It's almost how I read that, and then that's her grandfather, Tibet, 1927. Because why wouldn't they be living in this house if they're the care? I guess.
Well, they're just taking care of it. Just
Okay.
because you're a caretaker doesn't
Yeah,
mean
okay.
you're not family.
Yeah, that's true. And it's
And
the doctor's
she
house.
says-
It's not the Travers house.
No, see,
Right.
I got the impression that. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, they were taking care of the house because it was the doctor's house. I see
Yeah,
where you're
okay,
coming from.
yeah.
I assumed it was.
So that's probably-
Travers' house, but now that you say that, it actually makes a little more sense. That,
And Ace even says, "So this house. It's yo," and he cuts it off. Nice having
That's
a place
right.
in the country.
That's right. That's right. So it works even better that it's the Travers that are taking care of the house for him.
I actually went and watched the one episode of
Abominable
Snowman,
Snowman, yeah.
and this is Jack Travers. This is what he looks like in that episode.
Yeah.
So there he is as a young man. So
this must be Alan's wife.
That's what I'm going to go
Well,
with.
it's canon now.
But
Let's see what Candy Jar does with it.
Andy, you've got to get there.
but then would that mean?
And he'll say, "No, I don't."
So does that mean the old lady is Mrs. Travers? Because it's implied that it's her grandmother also, isn't it?
Would have to be, but
Who else would she be?
Anne's mom died, so
A word about the way you married my son.
yeah.
So
Maybe it's Alan's a brother from another mother.
Could be, or because we don't know if Professor Travers got married again, which is
True.
possible. So this could be a step brother to Alan and Anne.
oh, that's
That-
true.
yeah, that's
could be
true,
could be a third Travers kid out there at some point.
The thing is, we don't know. Travers goes back to Death's Son, but we don't know how long he was there when he shows up again in Downtime. If he had gone home again, so at the point where Candy Jar, the Lethbridge Stewart series, sends him off to Death's Son again, we presume that's the last time we see Professor Travers until he returns back possessed by the Great Intelligence in Downtime. Well, we're getting way off base here, but yeah, I like how Professor Travers is linked to this story. That's kind of neat.
I kept going back. I quite inadvertently read this one twice as well. Partially because I enjoyed the story, and partially because I wanted to see if there was far more to it than I was maybe getting out of it the first time. The house felt familiar, and there was a part of me that almost wanted to know if this was the same house from Ghostlight.
Well, especially the room with all the specimens in it.
Yeah, I mean, there were just little hints that were thrown in, and I went back and I poured over, the artwork on the walls and the fact that there's a nursery and an armory, and it's like, man, this sure feels like it's not, but it just it just really felt that way. And then, like you said, I enjoyed it more the second time. So that was a good one.
Yeah.
Good on you, Andy Cartmel.
What did you guys think of the story that had?
That's the one thing in this one I did not like.
It's.
I
not,
had a hard time following it.
That's my problem with it. It's not that I don't like it, because it seems like it's trying to do something clever, but I really couldn't follow the story that well. And this is my second time reading it. I still really didn't. It felt.
The idea is neat that it's this people from Ace's past.
Right, it's Perryville Gang.
Yeah, and so it's kind of neat to explore that
I thought it was a
aspect.
little trite, though, that they all went by King, Jack, and Queen, and she happens to be Ace. I thought that was kind of weird that they went that route, but...
Especially since Ace is just because she says it so much.
Exactly.
It's not,
Ace doesn't come from the fact that she was named after a playing card, but...
unless they picked up the nicknames after they
Maybe, I
nicknamed
suppose
her.
that's true as well.
I think it's less weird being a Batman fan. the Royal Flush
Royal
Gang
Flush
shows
Gang,
up
but no.
frequently in the animated series.
Well,
so.
I think maybe that's what cheapens it for me even more, is the fact that it seems like it's using already established.
Other than that, I agree with you. I really wanted to like the story. I'm not sure I did because of it felt very choppy, and it felt like, I don't know, maybe it was condensed down from a larger work, and there was a ton of stuff we didn't get.
That could be too.
Yeah.
But it
Now,
just felt like there was stuff missing.
The idea is that Ace did not show up to this meeting the first time.
Yeah.
So she's eventually supposed to show up and then decide against it and leave. And then that's when she ends up going with the Doctor. Or no, that's when
that's
she ends
when
up
she
getting
gets-
shipped. She gets stormed up to whatever the planet was in
Dragonfire.
Dragonfire. So the
Ice
Doctor
World,
has
wasn't it?
brought Ice World.
Ice
The
World.
Doctor has brought her back here because he needs her to be here so this event does happen.
To
Because
stop this
he
alien.
knows that this alien needs to be rejoined by some other alien to end up.
See, that's the problem with
Yeah,
it.
I
The
don't know
details
what-
aren't there.
Yeah, because they leave it in the sense that he was trying to reunite these two, like they were lovers, but they were like also enemies. I I'm not sure how to.
You got more out of this than I did.
Yeah,
Glenn.
I don't know. It was this weird thing because there was like going to be this confrontation there, and they did, but then the Doctor gives some exposition. It makes it sound like they were lovers at one time, and I don't know. It just.
I think you got more out of it. I don't
read it twice, so I don't know. Maybe I did grab a little more out of it. Sean, help.
I felt lucky that I was able to grab out the Perryville gang stuff out of this. That's how much trouble I had reading this story. I don't know why. I just I read it and I just didn't understand most of it.
It's almost like the writer kind of had one idea and then needed a MacGuffin. And so they shoved them together and it didn't gel. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Do you know who wrote this one? Paul Cornell.
Paul, what were you doing?
Paul. Well, now that you say that, it feels very Paul Cornell.
I went through the credits and went, why do they... Oh, that's why.
Oh, it's very the Grow like Doctor.
It's funny that
it's very like the Four Doctor event.
It's funny. It started with after reading all the way through it up to Mark. I thought to myself, this really felt like the Seventh Doctor's era.
Yeah,
it really nailed it. And I thought to myself, I wonder if Andrew Cartmel was involved in this, and that's why I went back to look. I was like, oh, he did write one of these. Oh, hey, there's another name I recognize. Oh, there's another name I recognize. So it's kind of.
Well, interestingly enough, this even feels Seventh Doctor, this particular story.
It's the machination.
I'm glad you're saying that because
man.
I wondered, though, if it was because I've read some of the New Adventures, and this story feels a lot more like the New Adventures, but now saying that it was Paul Cornell, I totally understand why this story is that way. But, yeah, but it doesn't lose Seven and Ace's character at all.
No, it doesn't.
Even though it's a bit convoluted and confusing. But
like I said, since it's only a 2-page panel with one full page, cover comic art and then one panel within the middle, it makes me wonder if it's maybe not lifted from a New Adventure novel or something that they just went with this piece of it.
Well, I
could be wrong.
What wasn't clear, this was published in 1994, but it's regroupings of stuff that appeared in Doctor Who magazine. So this copyright was 1994, but I think it's for the collection. I don't think it's for the individual pieces. Yeah. So that's why I think that those were all being written alongside the Seventh Doctor and Ace on television. So
which would make sense since that's how Doctor Who magazine.
But the
ran
Virgin
that.
New Adventures didn't start until 1991 after the show had gone on hiatus.
Well, then maybe not.
So that's why, I think
Teenage Kicks was a short prose story published in Doctor Who magazine 163.
Okay.
So it was intended as a short story and written as a short story.
Sorry, Paul, you lost us, bud.
Yep.
It's got great tone. It's one of those really frustrating ones. In a way, it's very much like the Seventh Doctor's era. It's got great tone. It's got great characterization. It's got an interesting plot that I didn't get.
It makes it. This is the interesting thing about it. It makes me want to read it. It makes me want to read a couple more times to see if I can figure out what's going on or get more out of it.
Maybe read the summary on TARDIS Wikia, then go back and reread it.
I almost feel like I need a Cliff Notes. Yeah, go to the summary and then go back and reread it.
Go to this version of.
It makes me wish there was a discontinuity guide for the magazine stuff as well, because sometimes you can go in there and flush that stuff out.
Maybe that's what we should do.
It was published in August 1990.
Oh, so it was after the series had gone on hiatus, or stopped.
Just,
yeah.
But surely they'd known that by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Well, especially since they went back and recorded dialogue to finish out the series on Survival. So then that brings us to finally the Mark of Mandragora. So. What'd you guys think of this one?
I enjoyed it.
I like this one a lot too.
Well, and you say quasi sequel. I don't think it is. I think it is a direct sequel.
It's a direct sequel
because
I said pseudo sequel.
Yeah. I
guess the only reason that I say pseudo sequel is it's almost like they did enough homework to make it a sequel, but the Doctor says that I thought I destroyed this. and he makes the comment at the end of
That
Mass.
will be back in 500 years.
That's the cool thing that
this-
he says this will be back in 500 years because of the angle of the direction of the helix. And Sarah says, well, that's right around the end of the 20th century. And so hearing them say that, remembering, because I hadn't read Mark again for the second time, I remembered that this does take place at the end of the 20th century. So I thought, well, that's very clever. But then the Seventh Doctor adamantly thinks he destroyed them, which the Fourth Doctor did not leave the impression that it was destroyed.
Maybe he's just misremembering it.
Because he had just siphoned off all of the energy. I suppose what he's saying is I don't know.
The actual quote is, I thought I destroyed it all then, purged the TARDIS of its presence, driven it back to the desolate edge of the cosmos it inhabits. So maybe destroyed it doesn't necessarily mean destroyed, but just destroyed it within the TARDIS.
The local entity that
was carrying it back.
And so what the Fourth Doctor is saying is that when this comes into alignment again,
it could return.
In 500 years it could return. Okay, all right, I get you. Then yes, direct sequel, no pseudo sequel. Well, even the little things about like I say, the research of it is right down to the shaving mirror.
Yeah,
stumbling across the console.
The great shot of the Masque and Tom.
Yeah, well, that is a callback, a complete flashback within the story. And again, without using the cult that was the trappings of Masque, it's the drug culture it's like they modernized the idea and brought it into the 20th century, which I think was very cleverly done.
Yeah.
Even down to the fact that the name of the drug is a derivative of the same name. For Mandragora.
Which I spoiled myself on.
Oh, the Mandrake?
Because in the Wikipedia page, down at the bottom, there's a footnote that Mandrake is a form of the word Mandragora, which I read and didn't think anything of until I got to this point, and they kept talking about the drug, and I went,
Mandrake drug.
Oh. Now, I mean, the story is called the Mark of Mandragora. It's not like I didn't know.
But it was like you put the pieces together just a little faster than you wish you had. Yeah.
I don't mind coming out ahead of things, but I feel good if I figure things out.
You just don't want that help.
Yeah. If I figure it out just before the Doctor does, I'm okay with that. If I know it 3 minutes into the episode and it takes him 45 minutes to figure out the ending, then I'm a little grouchy about it. But
I like that the unit shows up in this story, and I like that we get the brig. Now he's shuttled off to Geneva, so he doesn't get to be part of the adventure, but he gets to be part of the cleverness of
which it's
we get a great battlefield
reference.
It's interesting that quite accidentally the Sarah Jane cameo does not work with New Who, but the Brigadier does work with Sarah Jane Adventures.
Very much so. Very much so.
Well, it helps that he had come back so many times after that.
Yeah,
where Sarah Jane only came back the once.
Right.
In the series after they
but
she came back twice.
He's not in New Who at all.
Well, I know.
Well,
just name
ostensibly.
But
I just mean
there's less stuff to worry about conflicting with, or there's more to keep in line.
I see where
there's more to keep in line with this continuity than there would be with Sarah Jane at that point.
Right,
exactly.
It's because he's not in New Who that it works easier. It's
yes.
just the one appearance.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got you.
Well, and you have something recent to bounce it off of, right on the heels of his appearance in the second to last season of the show. You can set this directly after that, and it won't conflict with anything either. It helps that he doesn't come back, but it could easily not conflict because he's in Geneva.
Well, but I mean, it works with his appearance on the Sarah Jane Adventures as well, because they make reference to several things that have gone on and where he's at in terms of his career and, coming back and blah, blah, blah. And it still doesn't... There's nothing that's said there
there is
that affects the fact that he could have video conferenced with the Seventh Doctor and known...
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing in it that spoils anything.
Because the Sarah Jane Adventures appearances would have happened 10 to 15 years after this. Because this is right at the turn of the century, and obviously Sarah Jane Adventures were after the turn century. But
Yep.
20 years, I guess, almost.
Well, or 10, depending on unit dating.
Yeah, depending on unit dating protocols.
This was another one that I thought the voice of the Doctor and Ace, particularly in these scenes where they're running through the TARDIS and she's struggling to keep up with him and they're having this discussion about things, really nailed it. The relationship between the two of them.
What I like about this story the most is that the Doctor does not resolve the issue. That it's the TARDIS. And it's almost at that point where it feels a little less Seventh Doctor. In fact, his going into the real depressive state of there's nothing I can do, and Ace trying to console him, it's almost uncomfortable to see. I liked it. It was neat. It was really good. I liked it. But that seemed a little more out of character than this for the Seventh Doctor, in my opinion.
Well, especially considering how planning and conniving he was.
But that being said, I like the direction that they took, and especially, now I knew the TARDIS wasn't gone, but I like the idea that the Doctor feels that the TARDIS is gone, that it's hopeless, and that I think had the TARDIS really been destroyed, he would have stayed on with UNIT as a scientific advisor, realizing there's nothing else I can do. This is where I'm going to spend my retirement.
Yeah.
But
maybe eventually I'll be a museum curator.
Going into the room and realizing that the TARDIS shows up and that it must have detethered itself at the last minute, and that was neat. I like how we've given the TARDIS as a character a little credit for stopping the Mandragora the second time, especially since it hitched a ride on it this time as well.
I also like the fact that this did tie into these previous stories when the Doctor says, we keep winding back up here on Earth, and I haven't been able to get us away. And it's kind of like it's a subtle, but it created a really nice through line.
Yeah, it did.
And that was the thing that when we were talking about doing this, I said I think there's something in Mandragora that links back to the rest of the stories, and that's why they're bundled together. And I think that must be what I had remembered being the connector, but I couldn't remember exactly what the connector was. So.
I also thought this was an excellent panel. Even though we're boycotting them.
The Star Trek earring.
Look,
I never noticed that.
Cued right into that. Ace is wearing arrowhead earrings.
I never noticed that. Huh.
Which on the one hand I thought, wow, there must be an artist in the, it's just a fan. And then I thought, and yet, it's so very Ace. It totally works with the persona.
I'll tell you, the good thing that this was done in early 1990s, because it was now they'd be getting slapped with a lawsuit.
Yeah, no lie.
What did you guys think of Mandragora actually taking more of a form this time?
That was cool. It was neat. It wasn't an anthropomorphized alien, so that was high marks in my opinion. But no, it was neat. It was good.
I think it was important to have that aspect to it to build to that. There's nothing that the Doctor can do.
Right.
Because the first time he defeated it, wasn't reach corporeal form, and this time it had, and so it's got to do something more drastic.
It was still them possessing. It was still the Helix possessing a body, and then
it was just transforming
from that. Yeah, so that worked well.
Yeah, I think so.
Anything else on this story or the set of stories? That
you know who wrote this one?
Who wrote this one?
Dan Abnett.
Who's that one? The name sounds familiar.
He's written several of the new. Was it Silent Stars Go By that we? No, not that one. What's the one that we read? That one. We read one that Dan was responsible for, and I unfortunately think he may have been Story of Martha. I could be wrong.
Keith's
looking it up.
He's going to look it up for us.
The name sounds familiar, but
let's see.
This was just an enjoyable set of stories, pretty much all the way around. Like you
said,
the ending of this one was.
It was the Story of Martha.
It was.
And
he
did write the Silent Stars Go By.
Okay, well we haven't read that one. No. I own that one. I think maybe that's why.
Wait. This guy wrote something I liked that wasn't Story of Martha.
I bet there's going to be more because he's written quite a bit of Who, a lot of comics. Really.
Oh, has he?
So
Yeah,
maybe comics is his strong suit.
Maybe.
This is another one of my favorite bits, is that even in the face of victory for the Mandragora. That, and I'm scared, Doctor. And he's like, come on, Ace, when is it that you get to be present? He's going
He's
to
admiring the moment of
yes.
the
Despite the
situation.
fact this thing is going to destroy the entire universe in order to create a new one for itself, he's present for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of cool. And I like the fact it's a little moment, in the scheme of things, but it's such a Doctor-centric thing that just... Lots of those little moments in this set that I really thoroughly enjoyed.
Maybe
I can't wait to get
just
to more.
needs to stick with the Seventh Doctor because he also wrote The Harvest, Hex's first story.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We have listened to that, so.
I'm looking forward to more Doctor Who magazine comics.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll do some research and we'll get more on schedule. What do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up next, we, of course, just concluded our Adversary Archive, all things Mandragora, at least part of it. Coming up next, we've got another historical, one a little more in keeping with what Keith apparently thinks of as a pseudo-historical. The King's Demons next week for Friday Night Who with Peter Davison. And some more lovely sword fighting that the Doctor will partake in. That's our July 1st Friday Night Who, and our episode for next week will be we will review the 8th Doctor Titan Comics miniseries, so the 5 issues of that, and then Big Finish number 81, The Kingmaker. I don't know if there are any demons in The Kingmaker, but we've got the King's Demons and The Kingmaker. So
I don't think there are any demons in the King's Demons either.
yeah, that's true too. Possessed robot.
Yeah.
The following week, for Friday Night Who, we're going to do Spearhead from Space. So hopefully you all have that one and can follow along. We've already reviewed it, of course, and I've just decided we're not quite done with the 8th Doctor yet, so we're going to go back and hit a few Big Finish 8th Doctor Adventure Season 2 stories, Brave New Town and the Skull of Sobek. And then the 15th of July, we get some more Peter Capaldi and some new series stuff. We're going to do Robot of Sherwood. Robot. It's still there, whether I say it or not.
Historical.
Another pseudo-historical for you. And then the 12th Doctor Titan Comics, we will do the first 5 issues of Season 2, that they're calling it. And Big Finish number 84, The Nowhere Place, which I believe is a 6th Doctor, I think. It's been a while since I looked that one up. But that's all that's up on the schedule at this point, so I can't tell you anymore.
All right. Well, if you're not already supporting us on Patreon, please consider doing so. All of that money goes right back into this podcast, and if you are already a supporter, we thank you continuously for that. You can also check out some of the different various links on the right side of our page, www.travelingthevortex.com. There you'll find a link to the Amazon store, Spreadshirt Shop, ours, where you can buy Traveling the Vortex merchandise. You can also find 10th Planet collectibles there and some other ads and links that we'd like you to click through so we can get some money from those.
Get them now before Brexit screws it up.
That's right. I can't think of anything else we haven't touched on. So if that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.